Well, in a similar way to the video last week, we are left hanging, kind of anticipating. And I don't know about you, but when I watch those women, I see myself. Has anybody been there? I know I have been there, where I feel like God's calling me to do something, and yet I want to distance myself because I'm afraid. I'm worried. What if that woman were to ask me for more than just money? What if she wanted to let me into her life and tell me who she really was? What if she had issues with drugs or alcohol? What if she was dangerous? Well, at the end of the video, we watched the women walk away. You know, that one woman was almost about to turn around. Did you notice that? And her friend and her, when the crosswalk sign came on, they got out of there quickly. How many times has it been us turning away and walking away from that opportunity to be the light of Jesus in a dark place? You'll see in that video there was a Christmas box like there was in the video last week. And basically what that box symbolizes is the way that Jesus is in these situations in unexpected ways. And so those women, they missed this beautiful opportunity to be Jesus in that place of darkness, to be that light. Last fall, my niece Eliza and I were in the car. We were driving down to Hobby Lobby beside McAllister's, and we had just gotten a bunch of decorations for my sister's baby shower. We were driving back, and we went up to the red light there beside Buffalo Wild Wings, and as we topped the parking lot there was a man in a wheelchair. Some of you may have seen him before. He sits there often. He is clearly got some medical issues, and I think one of his legs is not fully there. And he stands there with a sign. And so my niece and I were in the car alone, and I knew I didn't have any cash. Isn't that our excuse most of the time? I don't have any cash. And so my niece was just learning how to read, and she noticed that he had a sign that had words on it, but she didn't recognize the words. And so she said, "Aunt Amanda, what does that guy's sign say?" Man, children will convict you, won't they? And so I looked at his sign, and it said, "Homeless, please help. God bless you." And I read it to her, and she said, "Well, Aunt Amanda, shouldn't we stop and help?" And I'm going to confess in front of y'all, I was scared. I had my niece in the car with me. It was just the two of us. I was afraid, what if I got out and something happened and she was in the car and, I didn't have any cash anyway. And so I said, "Eliza, you know what? I don't have anything to give this man, but we can pray for him." And we started to pull out, and she said, "But Aunt Amanda, you're a pastor." I was like, "Thank you, Lord, for reminding me. Please help. Aunt Amanda, you're a pastor." So for me, I was very, very convicted that I'd not set the best example for my niece, Eliza. I'd been given the opportunity to be the light of Christ in the darkness of that man's life, and I didn't take it. And in all honesty, he wasn't dangerous. When I look at him, it was daytime. He was not able to get up out of his seat. But I let that fear of darkness keep the light from getting in that day. I forgot that I serve the one who brings light into a dark world, right? We all do that. Jesus was the light born into a world of darkness, and the darkness was threatened by him. Jesus was dangerous. From the moment he was born, I believe the powers of evil and sin in this world trembled at his presence. In our book, we read, "The dangerous God we follow calls us out of our prejudice and our fears. Once we've decided to follow him, he calls us to fully trust in him." And so this Advent, we're preaching through this book called Under Wraps, the gift we never expected. And each week we're talking about a different attribute, a different characteristic of God. And so today, this week, we're going to talk about how God is dangerous, how God calls us into those dark places in the world and wants us to be the light of the world. The scripture this morning comes from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, and hear this word from the Lord. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in the territory of Judea during the rule of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem. They asked, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We've seen his star in the east, and we've come to honor him." When King Herod heard this, he was troubled, and everyone in Jerusalem was troubled with him. He gathered all the chief priests and the legal experts and asked them where the Christ was to be born. And they said, "The Christ is to be born in Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what the prophet wrote so long ago. You, Bethlehem, land of Judah, by no means are you least among the rulers of Judah, because from you will come one who governs, who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and found out from them the time that the star had first appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search carefully for the child. When you found him, report to me so that I too may go and honor him." When they heard the king, they went. And look, the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stood still over the place where the child was born. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with Mary, his mother, and falling to their knees, they honored him. Then they opened their treasure chest and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Because they were warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they went back to their own country by another route. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for the ways that you challenge us. You challenge us to be your light in the darkness. And so, Lord, I pray that during our time together, Lord, that you would speak through me and in spite of me a message into all of our hearts that compels us to walk away from here as a changed people. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. One of my favorite things to do this time of year is to get in the car and drive through neighborhoods and look at Christmas lights. Is anybody there with me? I love that. When I was little, Mom and Dad would put us in the car, bundled up, and we would drive around different neighborhoods to look at different houses that had lights on them. Now, we decorated the outside of our house, but we didn't go to the extreme that some people went to. You know those houses we're talking about? So I saw tons of different lights, colored lights, white lights, blinking lights, projected lights nowadays, synchronized lights, light up Santa Claus, and even light up baby Jesus. This baby Jesus looks a little scary to me. Anybody else a little creeped out by the baby Jesus? I think he's been out in the elements too long. He's weathered a little bit. So I still love to look at lights. And did you know that right now on Facebook there is a page that's called Tri-Cities Christmas Lights? You can go on in different houses that are doing lights for the community to see, post where their address is, and tell you to come by to look at their Christmas lights. It's really neat how we've been able to look at that and kind of map out the best route so that we can hit the most houses and get the best show of Christmas lights. Here are a couple photos of Christmas lights in Kingsport that are on that page. This is Christmas in Wonderland. Doesn't that look pretty? This is a little more Christmas. And they actually have music. They have music you can listen to on the radio as you drive by. And so you can see all different kinds of scenes. There's carolers, there's Santa, there's nativity, candy canes, bears. There's just a ton of different lights. And as pretty as those lights look, lights can be dangerous. This is why we don't put lights up at my house, but take a look at this short video. So that is from the Griswolds' Christmas. Many of you have seen the movie. But lighting up the neighborhood can be dangerous. Lighting up the neighborhood can be dangerous. And so this morning we find ourselves in the midst of a story about another person who is trying to light up the neighborhood of Jerusalem and beyond, and that is Jesus Christ. And that light in the world would be dangerous. It would be threatening to people who were in power. The light would shine in the darkness, and the darkness would not overcome it. And so this morning we hear the story of three men who studied lights. They were magi. Contrary to what we see in Christmas plays, these men were not kings. They were astrologers. They were wise men. And so they had come probably from a priestly class of Parisian or Babylonians, and they were experts on interpreting dreams and studying stars. And so these men would have studied the sky every single night. They knew where the stars should be. They had studied the constellations. They could point them out. And one night, as they were looking on, a new star appeared, and it shocked them because this star shone more brightly and brilliantly than any star they had ever seen before, and it was out of place from what they were used to. The star was different than the others, and that star seemed to call out to them, "Follow me." And in that tradition, when a king was born, they said that a star would appear, and so they went and they followed that star. They were from the east, which means they were traveling westward to the city of Jerusalem. Now, I believe that these wise men have three things to teach us about their journey to Jesus. The first is that we have to look for the light. We have to look for the light. If these men hadn't been studying the constellations and the stars, they might have missed this light coming into the world. In the same way that they studied that light in the darkness, we need to look for the light of Christ in the darkness around us. And I don't know about you, but I have felt and seen and heard the darkness more in the last month than I have in a while. And so these men, they were able to look into this world of darkness and to see the light that made a difference. For me, when I look out into the world of darkness, I must challenge myself, in spite of the darkness, to look for the light of Jesus in the world. I said a few weeks ago that my identity as American isn't what makes me feel safe and free. My identity as a Christian is what frees me from fear. And so for me, when I see the light of Christ in the world, I know I don't have to be afraid because I know how the story ends. And as hard as it is right now, I believe that God is breaking through, is breaking into our world with this light of Jesus. And many times we are the ones who are used as vessels of that light in the dark world. Just like those magi, we have to look for the light in the darkness. How often have you tried to look for the light of Jesus in these situations? The past few weeks when we've read news stories and seen reporting, do you look for the light of Jesus in these worlds, or do you let that darkness begin to weigh you down? Because we are people of light. We were meant to be freed from fear. That's what God's plan is for us. Jesus is there in the midst of those tragedies, not causing them to happen, but coming alongside of us when bad things happen, bringing us close to his heart and weeping with us as we see the darkness in the world. So these magi teach us that we have to look for the light. The second thing they teach us is that we have to follow the light. Not only did they look for that light, but they took that step of faith to journey towards the light, right? They saw it in a distance. Now, this journey caused them to take great risks. This was a far way for them to travel. They traveled to a foreign land, leaving behind all the things that they knew. They spent lots of their resources and time and energy to follow this star. They were vulnerable to the weather, to sandstorms, to thieves that might have broken into their camps at night. To whatever they might meet along the way, it was risky business to follow this star. The journey was costly to them. They traveled that great distance. They spent valuable time and resources, and so that they could honor the King of Kings. We're called to follow the light of Christ, in spite of the fact that it might be costly sometimes. In spite of the fact that it might take us a while to get there, we are called to follow the light of Christ in the world. Our journey may be costly and it may be dangerous, and yet we're called to take great risk as the people of God, because we, like those wise men, know that Jesus is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and that is something worth traveling for. As the Magi left King Herod, they followed the star southeast to Bethlehem. It really wasn't a long journey. It's just about 5 miles between Jerusalem and Bethlehem. When they arrived, they went into the house, they found Mary and Jesus there, and they knelt at this toddler's feet and worshiped him. He didn't do anything to deserve that worship, and yet they worshiped him because he was born as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the light in a world of darkness. And so we are called to follow Jesus, the light. What does it mean for us to bow down and to worship God and to do things that we felt unimaginable, to go the distance, to follow the light. So the first was to look for the light. The second is to follow the light. And the third thing I think we can learn from these men is to let the light change the direction that you're heading in. Okay? So we saw that after they met with Jesus, after they had this encounter with the light of Christ, they didn't double back and go the way that they came, right? Instead, they went in a different direction because they had been told in a dream that Jesus was a threat to Herod, that Jesus was dangerous and threatening that ruler. One of the authors of this book says that even as a baby, Jesus was dangerous to Herod because Jesus' coming was a trumpet blast from heaven announcing that injustice would not go unchallenged, that the tyrants who build their empires by trampling on the rights of ordinary men and women would finally face a day of reckoning, that the privileged few at the top who ignored the cries of the needy would face divine judgment. They say an encounter with the living God is a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing for those who oppose him, but it's also dangerous for those who choose to follow him and love him. It was dangerous for the disciples, right? They dropped their nets, their way of life, and they left and followed the light of Jesus into the world. They did lots of things that got them in trouble. They were uncomfortable. They felt in danger a lot of the time. It's dangerous to be a disciple of Jesus. It's dangerous for us as well, because when we are trying to be the light in the darkness does try to overcome us. Jesus expects us to become agents of his truth and his light in this world of darkness so that we can go to the darkest places and be the light of Jesus there. And so as I think about my journey with Jesus, I wonder, what does it look like for me to have encountered Jesus and have it change the way that I live my life from now on? Because that's what happened. These magi, they looked for the light, they followed the light, and then they let that light change their trajectory in life. They didn't go back the same as they came. They went back a different direction as changed men. Our path to Christ isn't the same as our path from Christ, right? That's what we wrestle with as people of faith. You know, there are some churches that are churches that focus on bringing people into the fold. That's what they focus on. But then what do they do once the people are there? How do you grow? How do you change? Some churches don't pursue that as much because they want you to follow Jesus and have that initial decision. But what do you do afterwards? How has your life changed? Well, I'm thankful that we're in a church that values both the conversion experience but also the journey towards Jesus. You know, at First Broad Street, we believe that we have encountered Jesus in a mighty way through our different ministries, through worship, through our reaching out. And so we believe that encounter with Christ has changed us. It's made us a different group of people. It's made us a different church. And because we're no longer the same, we believe we've been called to celebrate Christmas in a different way, to have a different kind of Christmas. As I mentioned last week, we feel called to be a part of the light in the darkness. Last year, we built a school in South Sudan, and this year, we want to build up leaders for the next generation in South Sudan and here in Kingsport. We believe that by investing in leadership development that we are going to help God change the world. We can be a part of something big. Well, this morning I want to focus on the work in the country of South Sudan. Fred and Libby Deering are missionaries from our Holston Conference, and they have been immersing themselves in the community of Ye in South Sudan for many years. This is a picture of our school that we built. Fred and Libby helped to oversee and make sure that everything was done properly. They've successfully guided the development of a church in addition to this, and they've overseen the building of this facility in addition to the latrines that go along with several of our buildings. Now, we didn't build this beautiful building because we like nice buildings, did we? We built it because we wanted to be a part of building up something for the future of South Sudan. And we felt like the best way to invest in the future of South Sudan was to be with the children, to be a part of their lives. the boys and girls in this photo, this next photo, they are going to be the change in the future of South Sudan, a country that has been at war for years and years and years, who just recently gained their independence. Those are the children that are going to grow up to be the doctors and the attorneys and the government officials and the police and the nurses and everything else that makes that community thrive. And so for us, we want us to invest in something that doesn't look like a building, but is doing building work. It's building up the kingdom. Fred and Libby have a dream for being able to offer leadership training and education to these kids. You all know it like it is here. If you don't have somebody to invest in the life of a child, their potential to reach greatness is limited somewhat, right? We need to name and nurture gifts in our children. And we need to be a part of doing that here in Kingsport, and we'll talk more about that next week. But in addition to that, if we can help the people of South Sudan invest in the lives of their children, to name gifts in them and to say, I believe in you, even though you came from a village where your parents had never been to school before, but we believe that you can do something to help move this community and this country forward, to help claim this community for God's kingdom. And so Fred and Libby, they have some different goals for what they want to do through leadership training, and I want to share those with you. They want to help people learn to ask the right questions, and that is so very important. They want to help people learn how to manage resources and to also manage the church, because without that kind of management and drive, the church cannot thrive as much as we want it to. They also want to enable relationships with Jesus, and they want to expose the children to the transformational power of the Holy Spirit. That's behind everything that we do. They want to equip and to teach and train others. They want to teach the teachers how to reach into the lives of these students and to draw out their very best gifts to be used in the kingdom. Fred and Libby also want to equip this community for peace and for loving one's neighbor and enemy. And in a place where your enemy is always around you, that is a huge, huge deal. They want to help these children live the way of Jesus, a life where others can see the light of Jesus in them. And that's what we're all called to do and be, right? To be the light in the world. And so this Christmas, we're challenging you once again to give as much as you spend. This was something that was challenging for many of us, and Justin and I felt that challenge last year as well. But we want to give a gift to our friends and family that is more than just a material item that will be cast aside or forgotten or out of date before it's even unwrapped. We want to give something that will create lasting change in our world. And so we want to give to the future of peace in South Sudan. And so Justin and I are partnering together with our church to try and do that very thing, to give as much as we spend. And what that means is that either you spend what you normally do and then you give a gift to match it, or you spend half of what you normally do. You have a different kind of Christmas. And that additional half you give to help those children of South Sudan be the light of Jesus in the future of their community. Like we did last year, we had Christmas ornaments last year that you could give as a gift to the people that you were honoring by a gift to the church. This is a card that you can enclose and a card for them. It says that I realized if you can change a classroom, you can change a community. And if you can change enough communities, you can change the world. And we are developing leaders from South Sudan to Northeast Tennessee. And so there are pictures in here of kids from our community here in Kingsport, pictures of kids from South Sudan. And these are available to you. You don't have to make your gift on Christmas Eve. You can make it between now and then. But regardless of that, you can pick one of these up at the table out there where the books are available at any time between now and Christmas. Lighting up a world with the light of Christ can be dangerous, but it can also be beautiful. Lighting up a neighborhood like that guy did in the Griswold's family Christmas can be dangerous. But as you can see from this photo, it can be beautiful, right? It's the same for us. Lighting up a world of darkness can be dangerous, but it can also be breathtakingly beautiful and far surpass our wildest dreams. Isn't it beautiful? I mean, Jesus turns on the lights for us every single night. We need to drive through neighborhoods to look at Christmas lights. These are the lights that God illumines for us every single night. We have a light show. God lights up the world every single night. And I pray that the light of our night sky will remind us that we are called to be the light in the darkness. Amen.